Hi, my name is Taylor McCausland, and for my persuasive speech today, I'm going to be talking about abortion, pro-life versus pro-choice. Today with me is my audience, Mark and Ann, and my sister Hannah. The topic of my speech is the problem of abortion and what the biblical viewpoint on it is, and what the world tells us, and then what so many people believe. And I just want you to realize today that pro-life is biblically correct and not pro-choice. The problem of abortion is that it is terminating a life that has a purpose and that God has already planned out for. In the Bible and the truth of our world and the truth of the word, it says in Jeremiah 1:5, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart, and I appointed you as a prophet to the nations." The sound of a baby cry at birth is such a beautiful gift from God. Abortion is more dangerous than childbirth and biblically and morally wrong. It can also be very costly for the mother too. Nothing can justify the life of a human. So why does abortion happen? Well, approximately this year already, 172,840 abortions have already happened, and 107 since I was on the site looking up statistics. And that was only about 2 minutes, and 107 happened. As Christians and believers of God and having a love for God, it is our duty to educate people biblically what it says about abortion, and that even at 5 weeks, your baby is a human, and God still has a purpose for that baby. As a Christian and a college student, I have gone through many classes that have educated me about abortion and about statistics and just different views that you can have with abortion. And that is how I figured out what my view was and what truthfully it is. And as a Christian, what we should believe if we believe in the whole word. Abortion is a very big problem and a very big argument in our world since 1965, and that started with Roe versus Wade. Not only is it morally wrong, it can also hurt the mother, and like I mentioned before, it is very costly. Our world is deceived, and the world, what it tells us about abortion is not what the Bible says, and it is not the truth. Pro-life is biblically correct and not pro-choice. I'm going to validate the statement that I said, that pro-life is correct and not pro-choice, by discussing why abortion is morally wrong and what it states in the Bible about terminating a life, and that is also abortion. I will tell you more about the effects of abortion, that it can bring you physically and emotionally. So let's take a closer look at this important topic. The first main point that I want to address today is pro-life and pro-choice, and just some of the court cases with it. So the definition of pro-life is advocating the legal protection of human embryos and fetuses, especially by favoring the outlawing of abortion on a ground that is taking of a human life. So stating that life has a purpose in the womb already. And then pro-choice is supporting the belief that a pregnant woman should have the freedom to choose to abort her baby, terminate her baby's life, if she does not want to have the baby. It can be for many, many reasons, but we'll look at that later. So some of the court cases that have given abortion their right and has legalized abortion is Roe versus Wade. That lifted the bans on abortion in all 50 states in our country. And women's right to privacy extends to her liberty to terminate an unwanted pregnancy. Doe versus Bolton expanded the definition of health determined by a mother's physician. And then Planned Parenthood versus Casey determined where the fetus becomes a state interest and unborn life begins. So this brings me to my second point about moral arguments from a non-biblical point of view. Pro-choice believes a woman has the right of privacy to her own body, whereas pro-life uses science to say genetically the fetus inside her is a separate being. So basically, I'm just going to tell you a pro-choice and then rebut it with pro-life. Pro-choice and abortion saves the mother from the emotional stress of a delivery. But actually, statistics have found that there has been a much higher percent of women being diagnosed with depression and found so guilty directly after having an abortion. So not having your baby and having that emotional stress is way less than a person that actually goes through with an abortion and then they suffer from a lot of guilt and depression after that. Pro-choice, a mother is not responsible for a child through rape and incest, so she should be able to abort the baby. Actually, science and statistics have shown that only 1% of pregnancies are through rape and incest, and there are way more than 1% abortions in our world. So that kind of cuts out that argument. A lot of the main points of pro-choice are just selfish reasonings that they want to have an abortion, saying that it would interfere with work, school, or other responsibilities. And another high percentage say they cannot afford to have a child. So this shows that the mother is not responsible for a child through rape or incest, that most of the women that do choose to have an abortion is basically because it would interfere with work or they cannot afford it. So this brings me to my third and final point, biblical arguments of pro-choice versus pro-life. So I'm going to say pro-choice and I'm going to rebut it with pro-life, and arguing against the Bible, you don't really get anywhere because it is the truth. Pro-life, pro-choice, a child in the womb has no life and no purpose. A lot of people argue that if it's not out in this world yet, it has no purpose until it reaches our world. In the Bible, in Psalm 139:13, it says, "For you created my inmost being, you knit me together in my mother's womb. Before you were brought into this life, you are a human." Pro-choice, a baby in the womb has no brain power or aspects of a real human being already alive, already living in our world. In the Bible, it says in Exodus 20:13 that if people are fighting and hit a pregnant woman and she gives birth prematurely, but there is no serious injury, the offender must be fined whatever the woman's husband demands and the court allows. So this just shows that whether a baby is in a womb or whether a baby is here on earth, if a child is hurt, that man is going to be charged for however he hurt the baby, whatever degree the baby was hurt, even if it's in a mother's womb or walking on this earth. So this brings me to my conclusion that we see that abortion is such a problem in our world. And people are so deceived into thinking it is morally correct to have that, but the Bible really shuts it down, as you could just see I mentioned earlier. Unlike pro-choice, pro-life always has its points backed up by the Bible. And it's hard and it's not attainable to argue the truth of God and be correct about it. You can do it, but you're not going to be correct with it. So a call to action for us as Christians is to be a warrior for Christ's kingdom, and help to educate people on what the Word says. It is important with a topic like abortion that we love people and we don't condemn it, that we come across and we speak about abortion in a really loving way, because people can feel guilty, but if we just shut them off, we're not doing our duty, because Christ loved the least of us. As this was all said, think deeper into pro-choice and pro-life, realizing that only one has a biblical truth and stance behind it. Help to be bold in the ending of pro-choice so that innocent lives of our babies are not taken. Thank you so much.